All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's NETPA virtual meeting. As many of you know, we have moved these meetings online in light of recent events, and we're going to continue to do this in the foreseeable future. For today's meeting, what I'd like to do is just introduce myself. I'm the president of NETPA, and I own a company called Core Matters. You guys are going to learn a little bit more about what I do here briefly. But before we get into that, I'd like to share with you a little bit about NETPA. So this is something fairly new for us. We've recently revised our core values. And in fact, one of the things that's really important to us is working with our community partners to help job seekers with barriers and challenges, to connect them with employers who can provide them with long-term gainful employment. And we do that by connecting the underserved to the right employers, by believing in growing our own community, and sometimes even doing what's unconventional. Now, we're going to talk today about attracting and hiring rockstar employees. This is something I am super passionate about. It's what we do at Core Matters is we work with employers to help them create new systems and processes, to help them to market their organizations differently so that they can attract and hire the best talent that is out there. All right, so what I'd like to do over the next hour and a half, we're going to end at 11:30. We might get done a little early today. But what I'd like to do is I would like to share you with some of the things that we're seeing work in different employers across the country to attract and hire better people. Before we get into that, though, what I'd like to do is I'd like to let you know that this is an interactive event. I know right now everybody is muted. However, there is the Q&A. So if you have questions, I'm going to be watching that. And I've got Maggie here helping me with that as well. So if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. You can also chat with us directly. So if there's any questions at any time, I am going to ask for a little bit of participation. If you guys want to participate through the chat and the Q&A, that would be great. So briefly, a little bit about me is, like I said, I'm the founder of Core Matters, and we help organizations hire better people faster. We're the creator of the Core Fit hiring system. It's a set of systems and processes that we help organizations implement so that they can improve their recruiting and talent acquisition processes. We're passionate about leaders building amazingly productive teams. And what we found is that when you can attract and hire rockstar employees, you can do that. A couple of things some of our clients have noted, and a couple of things about us. We recently helped a client fill 50 open positions within 90 days using our process. We helped another client, because they were hiring better, increase team performance with a clear purpose. And in fact, they just recently were recognized on the Inc. 5000 list. And just a few months ago, actually in the middle of COVID, we had a client tell us that they have one of the best cultures they've had in over 10 years because they're making better hiring decisions. So here's the interactive part. I want to invite you to put in the chat, why is finding good people so difficult? Now, I get that we're in the middle of COVID. I get that it has really changed the dynamic of things. It's really interesting because I hear from employers tell me that they are unable to find good people. In fact, it's harder now than it was pre-COVID. And I hear from job seekers say that they can't find a job because they don't hear back from employers, or they can't find something that they're qualified for. So it's a really interesting dichotomy. We've got a lot of challenges going on both sides. So if you're a job seeker or community partner and you're on the call today, if you would let us know, what are some challenges that you see in finding a good job as well? Now, here are some of the things that we frequently hear. There's not enough applicants. There's a lack of quality. We can't find them. We can't afford them. We can't offer benefits like some of our competitors do. I got another one here that's not on my list. People are not used to the virtual interaction. In fact, a couple of months ago, we had a guest speaker here at NETPA that all they do is help organizations with the virtual interaction. So if you missed that event, go check it out on our NETPA website. Some great information there for both employers and for job seekers. Yes, not on my list. People are getting more from unemployment than they do from working. Especially for frontline employees, your entry-level employees, definitely a challenge that we are seeing right now. We do have, on occasion, I do hear from some of our clients telling us, hey, I got someone who actually was making just a smidge more on unemployment, but they were bored and they wanted to come back to work. And so they are one of our best employees. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So don't give up just because of the unemployment. We do a lot of work in the trades, and there we have the skills gap. We also have people aging out of the industry. If you look at the trades, they are mostly baby boomers, and it's such a laborious work, very physically demanding, that a lot of them are aging out of being able to actually be productive and do the work. College is doing us disservice. We've got another chat here, competition, absolutely. We see that a lot in the trades too. Everybody keeps raising what they're going to be willing to pay, and it makes competition really difficult because people leave for a few more dollars an hour. And then by the time they come back to you, they want to make the increased wage that they were making. So here's some facts about finding people. People do change jobs at an alarming rate. Now, I get the last 8 months. We don't even have real data on the last 8 months. We've looked at a lot of surveys. A lot of people are doing surveys just so they can better understand what's going on. And from my opinion, the consensus is we still don't fully understand it. We have a lot of things like the unemployment benefits. We have things like the fear of the unknown. There is a lot that has happened in 2020, and a lot of people are concerned about making a change. But on average, about a third of employees will change jobs in the last 3 years. And the interesting thing is the average length of time with an employer is 3.1 years. And this is over a decade of averages. So I get that things might be a little different right now, but if we just look at overall, people are changing. I mean, you're losing a third of your workforce every year. And you could easily turn your entire team inside of 3 years. So people change jobs a lot. And I think that there are a lot of things contributing to that. One is the ease of which it is for job seekers to find new jobs with the proliferation of the job boards and social media. Now, the interesting thing is people are passively looking for work. So if you're part of an organization that puts a lot of effort into the job boards, particularly the Indeeds, the ZipRecruiters, the larger job boards, the passive job seekers aren't there. The passive job seekers are those that are open to new work. They're looking for a different employer, but they're not publicizing it. They may not have their resume up to date. They may not have a profile on the job boards, but they are talking to friends and family and asking them, what do you know? Like, what's it like to work where you're at? Do you know anybody that's hiring? And they're looking for more of a referral into an organization than they are looking to go through the application process. So if we have 3 out of 4 job seekers not using the job boards, and that's your primary effort, it could be one of the challenges in finding good people. And this is something too that I want employers to understand. For you job seekers on the call today, I'm sure you already know this, but 3 out of 4 people say the process of looking for a job is one of life's most stressful events. And I want to be clear, this is on the same list as death of a loved one, relocation, divorce. This is on that same list. Looking for a job is one of life's most stressful events. So as employers, if we don't make that process easier, if we don't communicate our process with applicants, we're just compounding that stress. And if we don't have defined processes and systems that we can set proper expectations with applicants, we're just making it harder for ourselves. So here's an adage you may have heard before. People don't leave jobs. They leave managers. They leave their boss. They leave the company culture. They leave the leadership team. So as employers, if we think about the problem that we have around attracting really good people, the first question I want to ask is, when you get a good person, are you keeping them? Because if it's true that looking for a job is one of life's most stressful events, most people aren't going to do that for a quarter more an hour. They're just not. It's too much stress for too little upside, too much unknown, too much uncertainty. They're leaving for a perceived quarter more an hour because they don't feel like they belong in your organization, or they don't get along with their boss, or the organization doesn't value what they value. So as you'll see through the rest of the workshop today, we're going to talk a lot about your culture, because what I believe is that people can get tied to a culture. They can get sold out to a culture. They can be committed to an organization's culture way more than they can a job. But too often, what we do as employers is we focus on the work, and we don't focus on the organization and our culture and our leadership team and the values and the purpose that we can provide employees. So here's another question. What is your least favorite part of hiring? If you guys want to throw that in the chat for me and let me know, what's your least favorite part? And if you're a job seeker on this call, what's your least favorite part of looking for a job? No one chatting in. Does that mean there is no least favorite part? I'll tell you mine. My least favorite part is screening all the applications that are coming in looking for the good ones. Yes, I agree. Spending time and energy on unqualified candidates. That is right in with the screening problem. I do not like looking through dozens of applications and resumes looking for the good one. Candidates are not engaged or don't take the time to learn about the organization. Absolutely. We coach our employers to spend time getting to know the real person that you're interviewing. But job seekers, you've got to do the same thing. I can't tell you how many times we'll call an applicant and they'll be like, what's this organization? I don't remember applying with you. Or, yeah, I don't know anything about you. And so as a job seeker, if you're really looking to have your application move to the top of the list, make sure that you take it serious and you spend some time getting to know the organization. Ghosting for interviews. Yes. I pretty much can't tell you a single employer that doesn't have this issue or had to deal with this issue. Applicants booking interviews and then not showing up. And, you would think, well, the employer doesn't have to go anywhere, so it's not a big deal for them. They get 30 minutes or an hour of their time back. But from the employer's perspective, that's time that we could have slotted in another applicant. That's time that we could have taken somebody else to the next stage in the process and been that much closer to hiring somebody. Filling out the paperwork. Yes, absolutely. I've noticed that now that we've gone digital, employers are starting to ask for more and more stuff up front because it's easier. Ghosting after the job offer is accepted. We do see this in especially the frontline, the entry level positions. They accept the offer and then they move on. No call, no show, nothing. If you're a job seeker, stop it. Part of this is being committed to the process. Same thing I coach employers, be committed. Yep, not showing up. So I'm seeing ghosting a lot here and not showing up or not committing to the process. I will tell you one of the things that we've seen work. So if you're an employer and you're struggling with this, when you do speak with the candidate and you're having that conversation, you're setting up the interview, call it out. If it's a real issue in your industry or in the positions that you're filling, call it out. We have an electrical contractor that was really struggling with this, and they were getting electricians all the time, ghosting them for the interviews. And they changed their process. And so during the phone screen, they actually asked them if they were going to ghost them for the in-person interview. And we saw the ghosting drop by about 90%. What we found is that people are inherently good and they do stick with their commitments. So if you can get them to tell you they're not going to ghost you, there's a much, much less likelihood that they'll actually do it. So they integrated that into their process. And so every step in their process now, they get confirmation that the applicant will be there and that they won't be ghosted. So here are the other things that we hear, especially from small and medium-sized businesses, which is where a lot of our focus is. Writing the job description. Now I get a lot of our employers on the call today are not, they don't have control over the job description. That comes from a compliance and legal department, and they're going to be stuck there. But what I find is that most job seekers know what the job entails. The things that they want to see in a job description are the things that most employers fail to put there. Remember, if people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. They're not really looking for information about the job as much as they are information about the manager and the organization. So making sure that that narrative is part of the job description is really important. Looking through resumes, following up with applicants, interviewing, telling people no. We run into this a lot. For you professional recruiters out there, and this is what you do as part of your career, probably not as big a deal. But a lot of times we find when the hiring managers are making the decisions, they tend to fall in love with people and they don't want to tell the people that are their second or third choices no. And so they end up hanging on to them for a while. And that ends up really disrupting the process. Dealing with salary and benefits. We've talked about pay and competition a little bit. Doing it until we get it right. I've heard that one too. So what I'd like to do is share with you our simple process to attract and hire rockstar employees. Now, I get that some of you aren't going to be able to just go and implement this process, but I'm hoping you get a couple of nuggets out of it that you can take back to your team to really improve your recruiting efforts. If you're a job seeker, I want you to pay attention to what I'm encouraging the employers to do, because there's an element of this that'll be just as important for you. The number one complaint I hear from employers, from applicants, is that they don't take the time to read the instructions, they don't complete the application, they don't fill it out completely, they don't take it serious. And I know that the job boards have made it very easy to apply for multiple jobs at once, but I would encourage you that if you get really clear on the type of work you want to do, it's less about finding the job and more about finding the organization that you want to be a part of. Remember, at NETPA, our goal is to connect people with long-term gainful employment. We're not looking to connect people for these little stints of jobs until they find the one that's just right. So I would encourage you both to take the time, go through the process, and make sure it's the right fit. So the first thing I like to encourage employers to do is tell the story. On the left side of the screen here, you'll see that this is our model. This is the CoreFit hiring model. And this is what we take our employers through to help them really build out their recruiting processes. And if you notice, it's no accident that Core looks like it's got these little fingers into every other part of the employee life cycle, because it does. The core is the reason that people join and stay with your team. The core is what aligns people on values and purpose. And so if we're not telling the story in the correct way, in a way that's going to engage and connect with people, we're really missing out on attracting the people that we will consider rock stars as employers. What I hear when someone tells me they can't find good people, and we dig into it, what we're often hearing is not that we can't find people that don't have the skills to do the work. What we hear is we're finding people that don't value what we value. They don't care about the client the way we care about the client. They're not aligned to our vision and where we're going as an organization. And they're really just looking to come in and do the work. So on both sides, employers and job seekers, get aligned there and make sure that you're looking for something that when you get out of bed in the morning, you're excited to go do it. And the story is a critical piece to this. So your company's messaging matters. And for you job seekers on the call, your social media profiles matter. Your message, your brand that you have online matters. Most recruiters are going to Google you. Just be ready for what they're going to find. And I would suggest that if you're not comfortable with some of the things they're going to find, go clean it up and make sure not to do that again. You see, when an organization when they invest in branding, they reduce turnover by 28%, because now they're connecting with people on values and they're aligning with people at a different level than just the work. See, most people don't get out of bed just because they have to go earn $1 and they want to go do the work. Most people get out of bed because they're excited about what the organization does. They're excited about their contribution in the community, and that's what drives people. And if we can get that message in front of them to let them know what we're all about, that can really help in reducing turnover. And the other thing to remember is that job seekers are 3 times more likely to trust an employee about the company than they are the recruiter, the CEO, anybody else in the organization. So if you think about social review websites like Yelp, so many more people are more likely to trust a total stranger's opinion than they are what the organization tells them. So if you're an organization that has a lot of bad reviews online for whatever reason, whether it's from employees or for customers, that can really impact your ability to attract good people to your company. Now, if you don't have control over those reviews, I would suggest that you look at why the reviews aren't as good as they should be and start diagnosing what the real issue is and solving that. Because when people see that customers aren't happy, they're more likely to perceive that as a poor workplace and an environment that they may not thrive in. So here are some ways to become a magnet for excellence. It's one of the taglines that we have because we want job seekers to be drawn to you. Not just applying for your jobs, but saying, that's a company I want to be a part of. That's a team I want to be on. That's worth a long-term commitment. And one of the ways to do that is to align purpose and values. All of the recent Gallup studies have shown that especially the modern workforce, the younger workforce, the millennials, the Gen Z, it's more important to them that they're aligned to a purpose, that they know that they'll be trained and they'll be mentored inside of an organization than that they're paid well. So I like to say that the younger generation, they've traded a paycheck for a purpose. And if you can align on purpose, it's a lot easier for people to get engaged and get productive in the work that you're doing. So be really forthcoming in what your values are, what your purpose is. Most organizations' purpose is not to make a lot of money, although there are shareholder value that you do have to consider. Most of them have something else that they contribute to the community. So get really clear on that and find people that are attracted to that. Create the message through their eyes. I know a lot of times we get challenged because there are legal and compliance requirements in the things that we can or can't say inside of a job ad or on our careers page. But just consider what that looks like from the job seeker's perspective, especially when you look at the types of job seekers that NETPA is really aligned to. Those with some sort of disadvantage to gainful employment. They have a barrier to entry, whether it's a disability, re-entry, maybe they're an immigrant. Think about it through their eyes. And while the legal and compliance stuff is important, it may not be as important to a job seeker. So make sure that your messaging aligns to them. Let the employees tell the story. This is one of my pet peeves. I talked to a very large logistics company a while back, and they were really focused on finding good drivers. And when you go to their careers page, sure, they have all the job ads for drivers, but all of their videos, all of the content on their career page were clearly professionally hired actors. They were high production value videos talking about all the great work from home jobs they had. And they were confused as to why they couldn't find drivers to work out in the field. Well, the things that are going to attract someone to more of a decidedly white collar job where they get to work in an air conditioned environment, work from home, work remote is way different message than the message that you would get when you're looking for drivers. And so not only was the message off from what their focus was, but they clearly had paid actors in there that were telling the story. Most employees are not going to be amazing on camera. Sure, you might find some, but that's okay because people are looking for authenticity. And the more authentic the video comes across, the more authentic the employee testimonial comes across, the more believable it is. So let the employees tell your story. And then I'll just echo that again with keep it real. Authenticity is way more important. If you do studies on YouTube videos and you look at production value, the lower produced value videos actually often have a higher engagement rate than the professionally produced ones. Just because they know, people just know inherently that if it's a high production value, there were edits, there was scripting, it may not be as real and as authentic. So it's really important to do that. And then also rethink video. Job applications increased by 34% when a video is included in the job posting. So all of our clients have videos that they're required to create to implement our process, and we include those videos inside of the job posting. Now, if you have a lot of open jobs, it may be something you have to do a little bit more of a generic video that talks about the culture. But if you know that you've got a few positions that you're always recruiting for, go out and film some videos, the day in the life, what the employees are doing, what it's like to be on that team, and include those in the job ad. It will really help your conversion rates. So before I move to the next section, any questions anybody has, feel free to throw them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions we have right now. So here's something I learned about a couple of years ago, and it really just opened my eyes to one of the biggest challenges I see with employers looking to attract rock stars. Now, I want to ignore any debate right now around whether or not you can use the word rock star in your job ads because it might attract a certain type of person, maybe a protected class, or it disincentivizes a protected class. I don't want to have that conversation right now because I really want to talk more about the concept of rock star employees. All hiring managers want rock stars. They want people that they think are amazing, they're engaged, they're productive, ultimately they're profitable employees. That's what they want. The problem is most of the time, rock stars don't rise to the top of the candidate pile during the interview process. And let me share with you for a second why. So there's this concept of a rock star versus a superstar. And I'm afraid that a lot of employers confuse these two very frequently. Now, this is based on a framework that was outlined by Kim Scott in Radical Candor. This was my big takeaway from the book. And this is something that we've been teaching, but she allowed us to put some words to it. So here's the thing that I see happen a lot is that hiring managers, they want rock stars, but they end up hiring superstars because superstars appear or come across more impressive during the application process. Then they get disappointed because superstars don't provide them what they were looking for. And the opposite may happen as well. They're looking for a superstar and they end up hiring a rock star. So let me define these two. So rock stars are the rock of your team. They're reliable. They aren't looking to move up. They dream of working in their current job. They want to be excellent at what they do. They're not interested in new roles. and they're often perceived as lacking ambition, but they're really focused on stability. So I'll tell a quick personal story on this. Before my wife came home, she was in logistics. And every time that reviews came up, her boss was tapping her to say, hey, I want you to manage the team. I want you to move into a leadership role. I want you to move into a management role. And it was even frustrating to me at the time when she would keep telling her boss, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm great at what I do. That's why you're priming me to move into management. People come to me because I'm a great resource for them, but I'm not interested in moving up the ladder. And it really hurt her career prospects at the organization because eventually they're like, you know what? She's not going anywhere. She's just going to sit where she's at and do her thing. Well, that's because my wife's a rock star and she wants to be an expert at what she does. And she's not interested in taking on new responsibilities. She's not interested in coming up with new processes and systems and figuring out how to squeeze a couple more points out of the margin on the P&L. That's not what she's interested in. What she's interested in is being an expert at what she does. And a lot of times when we want to hire rock stars, that's what we really want. We really want someone that's going to be able to put their head down, focus, get the job done, and do an amazing job and take care of our customers. The problem comes up when we start interviewing people. And rock stars don't seem as impressive because they don't seem as ambitious as superstars. You see, superstars have a steep growth trajectory. They want to move up. If they don't, they move on. If you've got turnover in a specific department right now, and you see people coming in and they get bored and they move on to that next job, or they're constantly transitioning to different departments because there's a new opportunity, that's probably a superstar. But they were being treated like a rock star in their current position. They dream of advancement. They want more responsibility. They're often perceived as not focused because they need the challenging work to feel like they're making a difference. And for a superstar, they're focused on growth. So I don't know if anybody on today's call has ever had this problem, but we've seen it happen where a new employee will start, and by day 2, they're telling us all the things we're doing wrong, all the things we can improve. And we're just sitting here like, would you just focus on the work? But they're so focused on improvement and growth and how they can make things better. And then the managers get frustrated because they're like, I just want this person to focus on the work we're doing. Just want them to focus on doing a great job, not telling us all the stuff that's broken. Well, that's because they wanted a rock star, but they ended up hiring a superstar. Because superstars come into interviews, they knock it out of the park. They know how to answer the questions. Superstars are the ones that did the research on the company. Like they're ready to get in there and make a big difference. And rock stars are more focused on, you know what? I know I'm good. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a great job and I'm going to do an amazing job, but it may not be as flamboyant as the superstars. And we see this all the time in interviews. We see this all the time in the process. Now, that doesn't mean that rock stars aren't good at the application process. It just means that they know their value in the marketplace. So if we're not appealing to them because our job ads are in such a way that they're boring, they don't look like there's going to be some great work, we're not aligning to purpose, we're not aligning to the things that are driving rock stars, we're going to get frustrated as employers. So how important is the job description to hiring rock stars? I already kind of alluded to this a little bit, but any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on anything I've said so far, or even on this question here about hiring rock star employees and using the job description to attract them? So it's really important when you're hiring rock stars to start off on the right foot. And for most job seekers, the first time they're going to hear about your organization is when they first see your job description. And 53% of job seekers want expectations clearly explained in the job description. And what that means is they want to know what's expected of them, not of the work that they're going to do. So often employers are really good at putting together what I call the 3 R's: the responsibilities, the requirements, and the rewards for doing the work. And that's most job descriptions. But there's nothing in there about expectation. You see, here's the thing about rock stars is they want to work with other rock stars. They don't want to be the one that has to carry all the weight. So the more clear you are about the expectations for people inside of your job descriptions, the more likely job seekers are to get excited about it and follow the process. Also, organizations that invest in a strong candidate experience improve their quality of hires by 70%. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the process here shortly, but one of the things to keep in mind that if you're in an organization where you let applications come in for 2 or 3 weeks before you close the job and then you start reaching out to people, I'm telling you right now, that's probably one of the number one reasons you're struggling to find good people, because good people are highly valued in the marketplace. And they're not just applying for one job and waiting. They're applying for others. And so if someone is getting to them faster than you are, they're more likely to get scooped up there than they are to wait around to hear from you. So I have a question here. How do I be a rock star? So from a job seeker's perspective, I will tell you there's a lot of confidence that needs to come through in the interview and in the application. So if you're applying for multiple jobs without doing any research about the company, that's going to be a disadvantage for you. What I encourage job seekers to do, which I don't work with them typically, but I do talk sometimes to them, is get really clear on the job you want and then focus on finding the right employer. Because if you know that you want to be a machinist and you've got the skills to be a machinist, don't start looking at all these other jobs that might be out there. Focus on being a machinist. And now it's a matter of finding the right employer. And so fully completing the application, understanding the organization, connecting with hiring managers on LinkedIn. I can't tell you how quickly that can get you to the front of the list. Reaching out and not bombarding them with requests, but just connecting so that they know you're there. And just really making sure that you're being very thorough in the process. Also, if you struggle in the interview is one of the most critical things. So get some training around interviewing, get more confident in the interview. Don't rehearse questions as much. We actually coach employers to not use the very traditional questions because they are so often rehearsed, but just focus on being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin, and that will really come through. The 3 R's are responsibilities, requirements, and rewards. So salary and benefits, how you're going to reward them for doing the work. It's a question we were asked. All right, so the perfect job description. I get that sometimes you're going to be locked up in being able to make changes to this. But if there's a couple of things you can do to help with your prospects, that would be great. So if you are focused on the job boards right now, one thing to remember about the job boards is that they are search engines. Indeed is no different than Google. If your job ads aren't keyword optimized, if they don't tell the story in a certain way, Indeed's not going to be able to promote you to the right job seekers. So keep in mind that they are nothing more than search engines that are looking to connect the right jobs to the right people. And if we go back to that earlier adage where people don't leave jobs, they leave managers, here's the important thing to remember. They know what the work is. Unless you are focused on extremely entry-level positions where you are taking people with absolutely no experience, apprenticeship programs might be an example of that. If that's what you're doing, then you still want to focus on the culture components, but you are going to have to spend some time explaining to them the work that's involved. But if they leave managers, what are they looking for? They're looking for a place where the grass is greener. So your job as the recruiter is to make sure that in that job description, it's really clear that the grass is really greener. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a job seeker leave one organization, go to another, and find out the only reason the grass was greener was because it was growing over a septic tank. So just be very, very careful in how you promote this. Make sure that if you do commit to this in your job description, that your organization will follow through. So describe the work environment. What's it like to work there? What's it like a day in the life? Employee testimonials are a great way to do this. Add them to your job descriptions. Who are they going to be working for? Now, I get sometimes you may not know exactly who their hiring manager is, but if you do, describe them. Talk about their behaviors, their personality style, their leadership style, the way they hold people accountable. And then also let them know who you don't want. So often job descriptions are very much, this is what I want, this is what I want, but then you ignore all the things you don't want. I promise you that there are things you know that you don't want in an applicant. There are behaviors, there are traits, there's probably experience. There are things that you don't want. Be really clear on that. So the 4 sections of the perfect job description, the first one is the lead-in. Remember, if job boards are search engines, if your applicant tracking system is displaying lots of jobs, what do? They always grab the first few sentences and display that to the job seeker. So those first few sentences must be high impact. They must be specific to your company, and they must help you screen immediately. Sometimes it can just be a couple of questions, but I can't tell you how many times I see it where it says, we're a company located in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're looking for skilled technicians. And all of their job ads say the same thing. Like, that's not high impact. It's not company specific. Yours says that, and so does all your competition. So if you really want to stand out in the job seeker's mind, get really clear on your lead-in. The next section is what you're not looking for. So I'll give you a couple of examples here, but we always coach people to hire over fit versus hire over skills. Most companies can train people to do the work. Now, I get you've got to have some level of mechanical aptitude. You've got to have some level of perseverance. Like, there are things that people have to have in order to do some of this work. But especially for a lot of the frontline employees, skills becomes less of an issue than it does getting to the job site on time, putting in a full day's work, not being distracted easily, those kinds of things. So in the not looking for, give examples of things that you have seen not work in the environment. So we have a client who believes that early is on time and on time is late. And so we get really clear on that in the job description, that we need people that can be here on time. Don't be calling us at 7 o'clock if that's when your shift starts saying my car won't start, because you either knew way before that or you were going to be late anyways. So give some examples of things that don't work. This is one way you can actually filter out and find more rock stars. Now, I know what the argument's going to be talking about job descriptions. Well, job seekers don't read them anyways. They just apply. Totally get it. Which is why I would encourage you to put some Easter eggs inside of your job descriptions if that's something you're allowed to do. Does anyone here on the call know what WIFM means? Because this is probably, if there's one thing you can take from this, put WIFM into your job descriptions. So WIFM, yes, so we've got it. What's in it for me? WIFM means what's in it for me. It's a marketing term. When you're writing a job description, you are writing nothing more than a marketing ad. Whether you think of this like a television commercial or a Facebook ad or whatever, a job description is an advertisement for your job. Too often employers forget there's a job seeker reading the job ad. And we forget to tell them what's in it for me. We think that by putting $14 to $18 an hour, 401k match, and health benefits, that's not what's in it for them. Remember, the modern workforce isn't tied to a paycheck anymore. They're not going to work for you for 30 years and collect a pension. That's just not the way the current economy works. So what's in it for me? The me here is the job seeker. So when you're writing your job description, write it as though you're speaking directly to them and telling them what's in it for them. Values alignment. I very rarely see job descriptions with a list of company values in them. Now, whether it's because the values aren't alive and well, whether it's because the values were a marketing activity that you put on a poster in the break room wall and everybody has forgotten about, I don't know why that doesn't exist. But values alignment is so critical to finding rockstar employees. Vision. For those of you that have read Jim Collins, Good to Great, talks about getting the right people in the right seats. Take that bus analogy to another level. If the bus breaks down and people aren't excited about where they're going, how many of them are going to get off and call an Uber? A lot. If they're excited about where they're going, they're going to get out and they're going to help you fix the bus because they want to get back to the destination. Being really clear about the vision of the organization, the vision of the department, the division of the initiative, whatever that vision is, being really clear about it in the job description will help you attract higher quality applicants. Those that are going to stick around when the bus breaks. Because I don't know about your organization, but most of the time things don't go as planned. Let's take March 2020, for example. Nobody was planning for that, and we all had to figure it out. And the people that hopped off the bus were the ones that are not excited about where the company was going or where their job was going. Get really clear on purpose. If you make a difference in the lives of other people, and that's your reason for being in existence, be really clear on sharing that with people. That's going to bring people to you because they'll align to that purpose. That's what's going to get people out of bed in the morning. Not, oh, if I don't punch in on time, I'm going to get yelled at from my boss. That carrot and stick motivation is gone. You've got to motivate them on other things. And then, like I said, if you know who the hiring manager is, talk about the hiring manager from their perspective. If this is the kind of person you like to work for, this is why you might be a good fit. So what's in it for me is really critical and missed in almost all job descriptions. If we were to go Indeed right now and start searching, I promise you there'd be less than 5% that actually did this. And then get really clear on what you want as well. If culture alignment isn't important to you, don't put it in there. If it is, put it in there. Tell them you want a rock star and define it the way we defined it, that expert that's okay not moving up, that wants to be the top of the field. Maybe sometimes rock stars even like it when they become a mentor, but they get to stay in their lane. Someone who aligns and sees the vision. Set proper expectations with them. How are you going to hold people accountable? I can't tell you how many job descriptions miss that. Then they get to the interview and they're like, okay, these are the expectations we have around you actually being able to perform in the job. And the job seeker's like, well, that would have been great if you would have told me that in the job description. Get clear on that and then give examples. So notice these are the 4 sections and never once did I mention responsibilities, requirements, or rewards. That's still on top of this, but you guys already have that. So this is the part of the job description that's really going to change the game for helping you find the right people. So make sure that when you put this together, don't be afraid to tell people who you are. Don't be afraid to put it out there and create this picture of the type of organization, the type of team they're going to be on. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's a lot to write. This thing's going to be so long. People don't read my short job descriptions now. And you might be right. But the right people will read these long job descriptions. I can't tell you how many times we get an application with a cover letter where it's clearly not a form cover letter, which I know the job boards have made it really easy to have these generic cover letters. And they'll actually in the cover letter say, I see myself excelling in this part of this job and doing this and being with you when you achieve this part of your vision. This job, I read the job description and it felt like it was written just for me. We get that level of feedback all the time in our job descriptions. And yeah, they're 1,500 to 2,000 words. It takes 8 to 10 minutes to read one of these. They are not short. But if we're struggling in quality, it's not so much about quantity anymore. Quantity, we've all figured out how to get high quantity of applicants. A lot of us here even said screening and looking through all of them is one of the things that's our least favorite part. This is going to allow you to turn that on its head and start focusing on the quality of applicants over the quantity of applicants. Now, one of the things that is really important when you're doing this on job descriptions is helping you screen. I mentioned it earlier and it's not in the training, but I mentioned putting Easter eggs in your job descriptions. So for those of you that have an applicant tracking system, you're probably familiar with knockout questions and application questions. If you're a job seeker, those questions they ask you as part of the application process is one of the ways that they automate screening. So I'm telling you right now, if you get to those questions and you think you know how they want them answered, but you don't believe in your answer, don't fill out the application, because it will come out and it's just going to waste your time. And you're going to be stuck going to an interview that you're probably not even going to get selected for anyways. So don't dummy up those questions. But Easter eggs are little things that you can put in your job description so that you can call people out for not reading your job description. For example, one of our clients, they have a little Easter egg in there. I don't know, it's probably about 2/3 of the way in that says, by the way, when you submit your application, let us know who your favorite Disney princess is. And then one of the questions is, what's your answer to the question we asked you in the job description? And if we don't get a Disney princess, we know they didn't read it. That's just one easy example. I know there's probably some compliance people that are like, we can't do that. But find something that you can do that creates that Easter egg moment where you'll be able to validate, did they just apply en masse or did they actually read the job description and then apply? So real quick, this comes up a lot. Social advertising. Should we be on Facebook? Should we be on LinkedIn? Should we be advertising in these places? And here's all I have to say about this. 91% of employers are already doing it. But about 14% of hires found their current role through social media. So I get it. You're all doing it already, but don't put a lot of effort in social media because it's not where people are coming from. So there are much more effective ways to do social advertising, but I will tell you this. Find your target market and go there. Don't just rely on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn for social advertising. Find out where your target market, your best employees, where are they hanging out? Are they gamers? Maybe you need to start looking at advertising on Twitch. You know, are they on TikTok? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on Reddit? Expand the reach beyond the big three for your social advertising if that is something that is important to you and your team. Any questions before we dig into an interview process real quick? And some job seekers, you guys are going to get some tips here. Keep the questions coming in. I'm more than happy to pause and answer them. In fact, it makes it a little more interactive for me. So make sure to throw those in the chat and I'll get them answered. And if I do miss your question by chance, put it in there again. I want to make sure I get it answered for you. So interviewing. So we talked about how to recruit, how to get people to apply for your open jobs, how to attract rockstar job seekers and the top talent, how to filter them out through long, meaningful, narrative style job descriptions. So now we get to the interview. One of the biggest challenges that I see companies having in the interview process is having an authentic, open, and honest conversation. You see, I have a Pinterest board that I share with my clients. There's a list of all the infographics on how to answer the hardest interview questions. What's the right way to answer, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the right way to answer, why do you want to join this company? What's the right way to answer, what about this job interests you the most? And there are literally thousands of infographics on this Pinterest board about how to answer these questions the right way. So one of the challenges we have as interviewers is how do we get through someone who, by the way, is very nervous. Remember, this is one of life's most stressful events. So someone comes into the interview, they're nervous. They may have studied some of these questions. They may have canned answers. But how do you get them to open up and be authentic? So I'll share with this later, but just so you guys know, I wrote a book about behavioral interviewing. You guys can download it for free on my website. I'll give you the link for that later. But how do you get people to be authentic in the interview process? So the best interview process is open and transparent. It's objective and it's measurable. The measurable part I often see interviewers miss out on. And there's so much of an effort on removing bias from the interview process, which I absolutely believe you need to do, which is why we look at making questions that we can measure the quality of an answer for those interview questions. The best interview process creates a trusting environment, honest feedback, and sets proper expectations. So I've coached some job seekers about the interview process. And for those job seekers listening right now, I will tell you, when you walk into the interview, they're not a firing squad. Their job is not to rattle you and stress you out and freak you out. Now, their job is to make sure you're the right person for them. And the only way that's ever going to happen is if you're yourself. So there are some other tips we won't go into here, but I encourage you, job seekers, when you go into the interview, be yourself, be authentic. That's what all the employers want. We talk about this a lot. A lot of employers will say, I hired this person and 3 weeks later I had to let them go because they weren't the same person that I interviewed. Be yourself, be authentic. You'll stand a much better chance. So for you recruiters and those doing interviewing, always set expectations. Time, purpose, and outcomes. If you work for a larger organization, you probably have this process dialed in. If you're still in that startup phase and you're still figuring out some of your processes, this is an important piece. Be really clear with them on what's going to happen. One of the things that I encourage all of our clients to do is to actually make a decision about the next step before the applicant leaves. And I can't tell you how often when we see people do that, that the applicants are like, thank you for telling me no. Right now, oh my gosh, took a huge weight off. Remember, job seekers don't want to tell you no because they don't want to ruin their prospects. But a lot of times they'll know, is this the right fit for me or not? And if you're feeling it, just call it. Tell them that they're not the right fit. It's not the right time for them, and let them know in the meeting. And on the other side, if you think they're going to be going to the next step, take them to the next step. Let them know right away what's going to happen. Here's the worst thing you can do as an employer when it comes to looking for rock stars. Remember, rock stars are going to be able to find employment somewhere else. It's easy for them to find a job because they're good at what they do. If you let a rock star out of your office and you know you're not going to call them for 2 weeks, be very clear on calling them in 2 weeks. Don't say, we will let you know. Because what a job seeker hears is when you say, we will let you know is, oh, I wasn't that impressive. They're going to keep looking. So if you know that you've got someone you want to grab and hold on to, let them know and have that conversation about what their next steps are, about what your next steps are. Have a plan. Have some good interview questions. Make sure they're measurable and have an objective process. This will help you remove bias. Now, I always get the question, how do we make an open-ended question measurable? And what I'll tell you is if you define that before the interview, you'll have a better chance at measuring it. So one of the questions we actually do ask, have a lot of our clients ask is, why do you want to be a part of our team? But before we ask that question, we sat down as a leadership team and said, what's a perfect answer? What's the worst answer they could give? And then what are all the answers in between? And so they actually have a grading scale where they can say, based on the answer, I get it's still a little objective, or subjective, but it's way more objective than the traditional just ask the question and go with your gut on what the right answer is. And then focus on behavior versus skills. I don't know about some of the job seekers on this call. I mean, if any of you want to chime in, let me know. But a lot of times job seekers walk into the interview with what I call a mask on. They're putting their best foot forward. They're afraid to be their authentic selves because first impressions matter and they want to impress you. And so they come in with these nerves and these rehearsed questions and they're just not themselves. And often as an employer, you're going to love their natural self way more than this facade that they put on because they want to impress you. So the more you can focus on their behaviors, less on their skills, the more you can help them be comfortable in the process, the more you can help them remove their mask, is really going to help you finding those rock star employees. When I say remove their masks, take off that facade, be yourself. You know, if you're a sarcastic job seeker, like sarcasm is your thing, you know, it's going to show up 2, 3, 5 weeks later on the job. And if sarcasm's a problem for that organization, I'd rather you figure that out up front. So I have this motto, says, if you're going to fight with somebody, fight up front. So if you're going to have issues to overcome them in the first interview. Heck, if you're doing phone interviews, announce it there. It will really help them assimilate into your culture much faster when you know you have the authentic person in front of you. And then I say review skills if necessary. If you're looking for frontline hourly workers, a lot of times you'll have training programs. We don't have to worry about that. If you're looking for more senior level, it's a different process. But some of these principles can still apply. So I'm going to speed up through these last few slides here, so I make sure we finish on time. But what impact does constant communication have on hiring rock stars? I've already alluded to this a little bit. So here's the truth. 81% of job seekers say continuous communication would greatly improve the overall experience. Now, I want to be very clear. Continuous does not mean we'll let you know. That's not continuous communication. Continuous communication is not, we'll call you in a week and then 3 weeks go by because things came up, we got busy, we had fires to put out. Continuous communication is communication through every step in the process. Also, 83% of candidates want employers to provide a clear timeline. So if you know it's going to take 6 weeks to get through all of the compliance, to get through your process, I would put that in the job description, just so you know, this takes 6 weeks. So it might be a week or two before you hear from us. And then if there's a way for them to escalate their application, let them know that in the job description. That'll help you screen people out too, because the ones that actually do whatever that step is are the ones that really want the job. So provide a clear timeline. Make sure to echo the timeline too. And if the timeline changes, communicate it to the applicants. The truth is, most employers never respond to job seekers when they apply. I think it's like 65%, 70% of them. They never hear anything. And then if they do hear something, it's a, we're sorry, we found someone with greater qualifications than you. Like 6 or 8 or 10 weeks later, when they closed the job out, when they filled the rec and they moved on. So that's not continuous communication either. If you want rock stars, you got to stay connected to rock stars. So is there anything you can do to keep them engaged during the process? 9 out of 10 candidates are going to drop out, or you're going to lose them because the hiring process takes too long. So if you're in an organization where it takes 4 months to hire somebody because of all your due diligence and your background checks and your interview processes and your panel interviews and the entire thing, you need to be okay with the fact that rock stars may not have the ability to wait that long. You need to be okay with the fact that you may lose a lot of real high quality applicants because your process takes too long. Remember, this is one of life's most stressful events. If you think about what's in it for them, they're in high stress right now. Most people want to get out of high stress as fast as possible. So if there is something they can do, even if they take a job that's not a perfect fit for them, it removes that stress. That's going to improve their overall quality of life. So if you're an employer that's taking way too long to get through this stuff because of all of the processes and systems you have to go through, you either need to be really clear up front, or you need to be okay with the fact that you're probably going to lose a lot of good people because they want to move out of stress and get into at least another role, another employer, something that will remove that from their life. So let's talk about onboarding for a second. So we've done this great recruiting process. We've got the right people applying. We've gone through the interview process. They've taken off their mask. We got the authentic employee to show up. The employer was authentic. There was open and honest communication. It's a fit. Now, if you don't keep them, we just went through a whole exercise that was a total waste of time for everybody if they're going to leave because expectations weren't met. So only 12% of employees strongly agree their organization does a great job onboarding new employees. In the SMB world, I would say that there's probably even less than this. There is no effort put into an onboarding process. You know, often the onboarding process looks something like, hey, John, I'm so glad that you joined us today. See that desk over there in the corner? Yeah, it's been piling up with boxes and paperwork. You know, when Jimmy left 6 weeks ago, we didn't have anybody to fill the position. But we knew we were going to find somebody, and we were so excited. Today's your day. So go back into the corner, get started working on that paperwork. By the way, don't let the boxes fall on you. Your health insurance hasn't kicked in yet. Like, that's what onboarding looks like. And as employers, we always bang our heads going, why can't we keep these people? We hire them, and then 4 to 6 weeks later, they leave. Here's the truth. If they leave in the first 3 months, it was a hiring problem. You made a bad decision as the employer. So get really clear. If you've got people turning in the first 12 weeks, you're doing something wrong in your recruiting process. And employee turnover can be as much as 50% in the first 18 months of employment. Now, this is across all industries, across all job levels. So I would say if you're focused on frontline or hourly employees, this number is much, much higher. So here's a quick process we provide to talk about the 2-4-12 launch. And this is really important with hiring rock stars. In fact, it's the first 2 weeks that's the most important. So it's measurable, it's employee-led. It creates a great experience, engaged employees, and improves productivity. If there's anything you take out of this today, I want it to be this next comment I'm about to make. We all want to hire rock stars. We all want to hire amazing employees. We all want to hire people that we know are good and that they know are good, and they have the confidence to do the job. So treat them like a rock star. I can't tell you how many times I talk to job seekers and they're like, well, they hired me. I was so excited. And then they show up. IT didn't have my login set up. I didn't have a desk. My phone wasn't here. I didn't have my badge. My background check wasn't done. They messed up processing my I-9, like goes on and on and on and on. If Mick Jagger walked into a stadium like that and nothing was prepared, what would he do? He's like, I'm going to another stadium. Treat them like a rock star. Celebrate this person. Engage them. Ask them for feedback. How was the process? How are you feeling? You know, what can we do to make this transition easier for you? Remember, they're coming out of one of the most stressful moments of their life, switching jobs. Treat them like a rock star. You want to hire rock stars, you got to treat them like a rock star. You don't have to do it forever, but celebrate them. In the first 4 weeks, get really clear on the role. The measurables, objectives, ask for feedback, ask them to provide feedback, help them improve your overall process, and discuss any unmet expectations. Now, if I could get everybody on this call to raise their hands, I can promise you we'd have 100%. We've either hired somebody that didn't meet our expectations, or as a job seeker, we took a job that didn't meet our expectations. Happens all the time. Call it out. Have that conversation up front. This is supposed to be about long-term gainful employment. And in the first 12 weeks, help them develop ownership, embrace their failures, create a foundation for success, help them create results, and let them set their own goals. If you don't have buy-in from rock stars on what the goals are, they're never going to hit them. That buy-in component is so, so important. So here's what I want to do. Just give you guys a minute. That concludes the workshop today. So identify 2 opportunities for improving your hiring results. What I'd love for you to do is share it in the chat. I'd love to see what takeaways you got from this. Was there anything from what we went over that you're like, that is going to be transformative? Or on the other side, if you're like, Ryan, already know all this stuff, wasn't that new, it wasn't that good, let me know as well. One of my core values is to always be improving. So I really take your feedback seriously. All right, so let me give you guys a couple of next steps. So I mentioned my book earlier. It's online. You can get it through Amazon, or if you want, you can get a free version by going to my website or actually just going into this bit.ly link. It'll take you right to my website, thecorematters.com, and then you can download the book right there. Email address, and we'll email you a PDF version of the book. The other thing I'd love to do is offer anybody on this call a 30-minute coaching call. So if you would like to take me up on that, you can go ahead and put some comments in the chat, and I'll make sure to reach out to you and we'll get that scheduled. Nothing to buy on the call. I just want to be of value to you, part of my commitment to NETPA and helping us connect job seekers and employers. If you're a community partner and you've got a lot of job seekers and you would like some tips on better ways to apply, get your application noticed, get to the top of the list, be more than happy to help you out with that as well. So that's it here. Looks like we have a couple of questions come in. I love it. Add WIFM to our ads and hire for behavior, not skills. That's great. I love it when people get takeaways from these workshops. I love doing what I do. If you can't tell, I geek out a little bit about this stuff. But I'm super passionate about helping employers hire better people, primarily because what it does is it changes families' lives. When we can provide long-term gainful employment to somebody in the community, a whole family is impacted by that. And that's really important to me, to know that employers are making a difference in the lives of our community. All right, so some feedback from one of our community partners here. Continuous communication, really critical. It really helps people get the feedback regardless if it's good or bad. So what I'd like to do now is just transition to the end of our workshop. Like I said, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can do that either through the NETPA website or even my own website, thecorematters.com. All right. So usually Verily does this, but she wasn't able to make today's meeting. So you get to listen to me for another few minutes. But I want to talk about some of the resources that we have with some of our partners in the community. Some of the things that we're doing to help connect job seekers with local Arizona employers. So here are some resources available for you. We have all of these resources available on our website at netpaaz.com. So Arizona at Work, it's Workforce Solutions, Arizona Job Connection. It's a great way for job seekers to find out what's available out there. Best Companies AZ, Career Connectors, Goodwill Arizona, Employment Services, and even Pipeline AZ. A lot of these are websites that our local employers use to post their jobs, to talk about what their organization can do, and make sure that they're finding local job seekers to give them that gainful employment. So Arizona at Work has a lot of resources available. We work very closely with them. Here's a URL and here's some QR codes that you guys can snap. Just remember that this recording will be live on our NETPA website early next week. So if you miss any of this information, you can go watch this on YouTube and you'll be able to get that information as well. But if you need help with your resume, if you're looking for a dream job, or you even need some help going through the application process, whether it's interviewing, resume writing, or even how to find a job that makes sense for you, what I'd love you to do is go check out maricopa.gov/find-a-job. A lot of resources there, a lot of great things to help connect our job seekers with community employers. Another thing that Arizona at Work has is a Job Blast newsletter. So if you want to text AZ at work to 22828, you can actually get daily leads about new jobs that are in the local community. So it's a great way to stay on top of it, especially if you don't want to have to check email or go check out the job boards on a regular basis. Couple of things about NETPA. So we are a member-based organization, and we do have very, very reasonable annual membership fees right now. So for individuals, it's $25 for the year, and for organizations is $75 for the first 5 employees. If you want to go to our website at netpaaz.com/join-now, you can sign up to be a member. Members get exclusive benefits. There's a couple of things that we'll send out specifically to members. We also invite employer members to sit on our employer panels. So every other month, what we do is we invite employers together, and then I interview them to talk about the things that maybe aren't coming through in their job descriptions or in their career pages. Finally, save the date. So we are going to be taking December off. We are not going to have any events in December open to the public. And so our next event will be January 15th at 10 a.m. It'll be a very similar format to today. There will be a registration link on our website that will be live by Monday. So you'll be able to register for this event. We're going to have James Montoya. He's the workforce project manager with the city of Phoenix. And he's going to be sharing a lot of statistics and updates about the workforce here in Maricopa County. So I'm really looking forward to that event. All right. I just want to say thank you again. I really enjoyed this. Please reach out if there's anything I can do to support you or your organization. I want everybody here to stay safe and have a great weekend. Thank you so much.